Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Welcome in. Winning cures everything. And no, that is not Chris. That is on your screen. That would be one Parker Fleming. Parker, how are you this morning?
Doing all right, Gary. How are you?
Oh, I am fantastic. This is, of course, the Sunday, November 21st edition of the show. It is the College Football Week 12 recap and reaction show. And, whoo, boy, do we have a lot to discuss today. I am pumped about it. We had blowouts. We had survivals. We had miracle seasons continuing. I'm excited about all of it. Let's see. Ball Python Love already jumps in. Is there a live show today? I had a blast with Chris on Thursday. Yeah, Chris is on vacation. So Parker is filling in and helping me out, getting through the recap show. The rest of the week, I will be knocking this thing out solo, and I will be recording at all kinds of different hours. So it'll still come out the same time, but I'll be trying to fit it all in because I'm trying to fit everything into a 3-day week as opposed to a 5-day week. So Antoine Johnson jumps in and said, Chris. He just said, LOL, and morning, fellas. Morning to everybody. If you want to jump into the chat, obviously you can do so. We are streaming on YouTube as of right now. If you have not already, like the channel, and subscribe to the channel, like the video, etc., etc. You guys know what to do at this point. Our goal is 5,000 followers by the end of football season. Of course, that includes the NFL season. We do NFL here as well. But our main calling is, of course, college football. Let me go ahead and give you the rundown. WinningCuresEverything.com is the website. You need to go and check it out. It's your one-stop shop for everything about us. All of our shows, all of our appearances on other shows, etc., can be found over there. On top of that, the show is also brought to you every week by BetUS, where the game begins. You can use the promo code NCAAF2021 to sign up for a 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,500, and it is sportsbook exclusive. There is a link in the description. Click that. It's going to toss the promo code in there for you. Very easy to do. Also, you can find Parker and myself on the BetUS College Football Show every Wednesday and Thursday, but, I mean, obviously we're getting into bowl season, so this week it's only going to be Wednesday. Just a really long show on Wednesday, right? It's going to be mayhem. So, which, by the way, I talked to the guys. They're going to do a little break in between for us so that it's not just 2 full hours of us sitting at a table. But either way, yes, check out the BetUS College Football Show. Link in the description for that. Parker, every single week, I have 2 keywords from the week before, and it's been the same 2 weeks, or same 2 words since about week 4. And those 2 words are volatility and consistency. We have a lot of one and basically none of the other one. And now that we are getting to this point in the season, it really feels like it feels like we are going to get it feels like a lot of chaos, but we're getting the most predictable results, right? Like Ohio State probably winning the Big Ten. Clemson now has a shot to actually win the ACC. This all seems like what it's supposed to be, right?
It does feel like we took the long way to the place we knew we were going to go all along. Like yes. We could, it's like we're just taking the scenic route. Yeah.
So we do have, we've got Georgia that obviously was a little bit different from everybody predicting Alabama, but those that were smart enough to look at and see what was going on with Alabama before the season, I mean, they lost so many guys. They're so young. They make so many mental mistakes. It feels like we should have known that, which if you watch the BetUS show in the beginning of the season, I said Georgia plus 180 to win the SEC. Like,
yeah. Did and I think about this, like, I'm trying to remember who said this, but somebody specifically even about Alabama, somebody the other day was like, hey, are we ready to admit that talking about how good Alabama's defensive line looked all offseason probably just meant that their offensive line was really bad?
Yeah.
So I think there's been some warning signs about a couple of these teams. I pulled up yesterday and bookmarked because, Gary, I'm petty as heck, man. And FPI's most likely playoff combinations, 4 of them right here. I picked them up. This tweet is from April. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. Alabama, Clemson, Iowa State, Oklahoma. Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Alabama, Clemson, Iowa State, Ohio State. They might have one of those They have one two where Ohio State's in it. They might have one playoff team, right? In their simulations this year. So just absolute. I mean, yeah, absolutely not what we were expecting going in.
It's
for a lot of people.
nuts. All of it's nuts. The one thing Chris and I have kind of harped on this since I don't know, about April or May, and we said basically when you don't expect Oklahoma State to be good, that's when they turn it on and they figure out a way to be really, really good. And this seemed like one of those seasons. Like if they could have everybody healthy and all this, and if Spencer Sanders just didn't get in the way, then they could be a really good football team. However, I mean, their total was set at like 8 wins, and yet they just keep on rolling. Like Texas Tech had been looking good with their new quarterback. What's the quarterback's name? Donovan Smith? Is that it? Trying to remember who
Donovan
I watched.
Johnson. He has a very basic name. Yeah, it's Donovan Smith, Donovan Johnson, something. Yeah.
So, but he looked fantastic against Iowa State. And against Oklahoma State last night, I mean, that's not even one of the games that I've got written down because it was basically just a thrashing. Like it's a crock potting, if you will. There was so much in last night's games, not just last night, just the whole day. We've got a lot to talk about. You know, let's go ahead and dive into it. Yeah. Let's do this. The first one, we'll start off with this. Let me write down my timestamp here. Utah, 38, Oregon, 7. And this was not fluky. This was not turnovers. This was not anything crazy. This was Utah 5 out of 5 in the red zone. Oregon 0 for 3. This was just a beating. They held Oregon to 294 yards total offense. Only 63 of those rushing. If Oregon can't run, they can't do anything. And the whole thing went to hell in a handbasket for the Ducks on that punt return touchdown before the end of the second quarter. And this was... If
the game wasn't already over, it was over then.
Yeah. The fact that Utah rushed for 208 yards against this defense should tell you everything you need to know about the game. Like, it was unbelievable. Anthony Brown is I try and find the right words. He's a serviceable quarterback who can give you some outstanding plays here and there, but as far as, keyword, consistency goes, not a superstar, not a complete playmaker, whatever. And Cam Rising, like, he has been playing really, really well for Utah, but they didn't ask him to necessarily do anything last night. He was 10 of 18, 178 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Just get out of the way. Like, just don't make any mistakes. Don't beat yourself.
That's the Kyle Whittingham experience for quarterbacks, though. It's like, just don't blow this. Like, just do what you need to do. And I do like that they got him going a little bit early. I think that first drive they punted, but you get a false start in 1st and 15. That really kills you. But they had him pass 1, 2, 3, 4 times on the first drive, and just said like, "Hey man, we're going to go to you. We trust you." And yeah, I'm willing to look. This is Sunday morning. We can wildly speculate, right? We're in the circle here. Nobody's going to get roasted for this. Who has been better than Utah since like week 4 or 5? Georgia, Wisconsin.
That's probably about it. I mean, Ohio State, like, I guess you could say. Like
Ohio State for sure, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, there's a few, but
they're good.
They lost the loss at Corvallis. Like, obviously, Oregon State went 6-0 at home, won again last night, but that one still just shocks me at the way that Oregon State was able to actually run the ball on Utah's defense. I mean, they had, 250 yards rushing in that ball game?
I just picked that one up. They ran for 260 for Oregon State there. Only 208 pass yards on 19 passes. Jeez. That
is nuts.
And Oregon State, how the hell did Utah? Sorry, I said hell. I don't know.
You can say whatever you want to say, brother. It is all good.
Hell's in the Bible. We're okay. Oregon State had 114 penalty yards in that game too, and they still won. Utah's home road splits are wild, man. Absolutely wild. If they could play a bowl game in Salt Lake City, I think that Utah would beat anybody.
Do they play? Is it at Colorado next week? I've got a lot riding on that game next week.
They host Colorado.
Oh, thank the Lord. Yeah. Okay, so yes,
is that a Utah over 8.5 for you, and a Utah to win the division?
That is Utah over 8.5, Utah to win the division, and a Colorado under 4.5.
Oh,
I've got 3 plays.
Oh, that's spicy. Yeah.
So I'm not even going to bet the game because I've got too much riding elsewhere. But I'm I'm holding horseshoe tuna. I'm not going to try and mess stuff around, but I've got my tickets right up there, my actual physical sportsbook tickets for those. So yes, I am ready for those. But this, the post-game win expectancy from collegefootballdata.com, 100% for Utah. Like this was never in doubt. Like from the word go, it's no penalties, no turnover issues, nothing like that. There was no fluke, anything. This was all a Utah thrashing, and I'm surprised. And it definitely helps get me towards my Utah over 8.5 wins on the season. So we'll move off of that one because we don't need to talk about bloodshed all morning. Alabama 42, Arkansas 35. Arkansas's post-game win expectancy here was 60%. And
dude,
I texted you yesterday and said, this Alabama team is awful. They are garbage. And I know that they're not. I am overreacting in the worst kind of way. But the fake field goal for a touchdown was a lot of fun. I don't know if you went back and watched that one.
Yeah, that was how can you not love Sam Pittman and what they're awesome. Doing at Arkansas right now?
They are so much fun.
That's so fun. I think between this game and a couple others we were tracking, there's like scientists can pinpoint the exact moment when you and I both decided, hey, we're going to open an afternoon beer yesterday.
Yes. And there were multiple opened because I was up against it early on. It was kind of rough. Total yardage in his Arkansas 468 total yards. Alabama 671. So Alabama had 8.8 yards per play, 6.4 yards per play for Arkansas. Both ran, mid-70s plays in the game. Arkansas went for it on fourth down 3 times. They got all 3 of them. One of those, obviously, was that fake field goal. Third downs, Alabama 6 of 11, Arkansas 7 of 16. Nobody could stop anybody in this game. It was bananas, and nobody really ran the ball. Alabama had 112 yards. It was 145 sack-adjusted rushing yards, but Arkansas ran for 110, 133 sack-adjusted. This was very interesting. Like, Alabama has basically 2 healthy running backs left. They have had multiple guys go down with season-ending injuries, and this is Brian Robinson's team, 27 for 122. Trey Sanders ran at one time, in there, and they are probably going to get him some more work against Auburn next week. But Traylon Smith, I kind of expected some more from in this game. They only ran him 9 times, but I think he's been dealing with some injuries. Treylon Burks had 8 receptions, 179 yards. This was a fun ball game. Like, every time Alabama would get up, they were up 31-14 early in the third quarter, and Arkansas found a way to come back and they got dudes on that team. Like, they got some studs there. What'd you think about this one?
They really do have athletes, and again, they're just. I just love. I think I'm trying to find the exact point. It was. I know that many teams would quit at the half. Alabama comes out with a drive, 31-14.
Yeah.
So many teams quit there, and Arkansas scored 3 more touchdowns and had the ball. And scored a touchdown with 4 minutes left. Like they did not give up at all. Which I think that maybe Alabama a little bit has in the past expected that of people. It's like, hey man, we're going to go 2 shots to the face and then you're just going to lay down and we're going to ride this out. We'll both make our money and go home. And SEC West teams, look at how feisty these are. Like Jimbo, son of a gun, doesn't want to quit. Lane, son of a gun, will not quit. Sam Pittman will outwork you until he dies. Like some of these SEC West guys are just not taking this. Hey, that's right. We lose to, we lose. Like look at Mike Leach against Auburn 2 weeks ago or whatever that was,
yes.
Where Auburn was up 20-3 or something. And the SEC West in the past just used to say, you're right, the big boy punched me. I'll let the bully take my lunch money, and then I'll sit back and try and get some other wins. And a lot of these guys are saying, no, dude, we don't have to take that. And that was super impressive. What's crazy to me, KJ Jefferson pressured on almost 33% of dropbacks. So like 1 and 3 there, pressured a ton, but he was able to get away from it. They only sacked him twice on 11 of those. And he completed, 56% of his passes. He was able to make something out of nothing there. And scramble pretty, and scrambling wasn't part of his rushing attack. Like he was either getting away from it, throwing an incompletion, or he was getting the check down yards there too. So I think that was pretty frustrating for Alabama's defense as well.
No, he was incredibly accurate. Like 22 out of 30, 326 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's a QBR damn near 200. Like, he is unbelievable. And the battle between those two guys, like, he's massive, right? I mean, he looks like a Cam Newton type as far as his size. And you watch him compared to Bryce Young, and Bryce Young is this little tiny dude that's like running around in the pocket, like scampering around. It's a stark contrast. I enjoyed this. I will tell you, as an Alabama fan, there are not a lot of opportunities to have like close, grab your guts games, and this was one of them. Alabama turned the football over with 8 minutes left roundabout in the ball game, turned it over on the 1 yard line. Cameron Latu caught a pass, was running into the end zone, or trying to run into the end zone, gets the ball stripped. Arkansas recovers. So they actually had a shot. They had possession with a chance to take the lead. And luckily, the Alabama defense got a stop. I mean, they get some stops here and there. The defense isn't awful, but there are games like this where, okay, 3 out of 3 on fourth down, 7 to 16 on third down. They threw for 358. It's like, okay, can we ever put this thing away, right? And it just doesn't happen for whatever reason. So it was rather frustrating as an Alabama fan to watch. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you get a win, and it's a nice, close, everybody's watching kind of game, which is what it turned into. Like, I don't think that a lot of people were planning to watch this. But it lets me know, like, anytime you've got Alabama as a massive, massive favorite, I mean, it's not just an automatic that you got to take them, right?
Yeah. It used to be Alabama plus whatever was the bet always, and this year, I mean, it's kind of been crazy. One weird little stat thing I noticed about Bryce Young this year and what they're having to do on offense. Bryce Young has had 40 dropbacks. Let me make sure I get my math right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And in 4 of their last 5 conference games, he's had 40 or more passing dropbacks. Mac Jones only passed for 40 dropbacks twice, both in postseason, Florida in the championship game and then Ohio State in the championship. Tua in his 2019 season only passed 40 times twice. So like Alabama's having to throw the ball way, way more with Bryce Young because I think that their rushing attack hasn't been as dominant. And, who knows what's going on in Bill O'Brien's head. But to me, it just with the teams not quitting and with Alabama kind of stylistically looking at different, it does feel like we're in one of those transition periods for the age of college football. That's not to say Alabama's phasing out. They're obviously still excellent, even if they're flawed. But I mean, it just does feel you're like, man, we're going to look back in a couple of years and be like, oh yeah, Alabama started passing a ton. That's the thing that happened. Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of nuts because we did have this around the time of the A&M game that everybody was discussing, hey, you need to run the damn ball more. And the issue is that, if you've only got 2 healthy backs, and even when they did have Roydale Williams and Jace McClellan and whatnot, that was still a little bit of an issue, right? You still don't have that premier back that is really these guys are all young. Like, I will tell you this team is going to be really good, I think, next season because basically everybody's coming back. Bryce Young, only a sophomore, like he's got a lot of learning to do. The offensive line still growing up, still trying to figure things out. I mean, they were without they had their center back yesterday, and I forget his name. I should know it. But he's still dealing with a little bit of an injury, ankle injury and whatnot. There's the continuity and everything that they had in 2020 will never be replicated. The Bill O'Brien thing, in the NFL, it's not as easy to get 2 yards on 3rd and 2. So a lot of teams, if you do have a superstar quarterback, you throw the football. It makes sense. Ryan McCracken jumped in on YouTube. I think I could get 10 catches versus Bama. I mean, probably.
Okay, I'm not going to read this word for word, but my tweet yesterday was like, I'm trying to remember what game it was where I saw somebody catch something over the middle and just get obliterated. And I tweeted and thought, every time I see that happen to a wide receiver, I remember how quickly I would die in a college football game. Like, there was no getting by in a college football game. I couldn't just like hide out and not get murdered. I would die immediately.
Yes.
Some of these dudes take a shoulder to the ribs and still hold on to the ball. Not me. Couldn't do it.
No,
would die.
Impossible. All right, let's move on.
I don't want to talk about Alabama forever, but I don't have any place else to get these thoughts out. I wonder if next year there's not going to be an overcorrection, because like this year in the passing game, it's like Bryce Young, dance around and then make something happen.
Yes.
Next year, if their offensive line's a little better, is there going to be like an adjustment period for Bryce Young to learn to stay in the pocket and make his reads? Because I think a little bit we're seeing that at Oklahoma with Rattler this year. Last year, Rattler was like playing chaos ball and it was ebb and flow. But you're like, all right, this might go well.
Yeah.
This year he's had time and he got benched because he just can't make his stinking reads.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, it depends on if Bill O'Brien is still there next year, right? I think that's a big part of it, because I think that Bill O'Brien runs it very much like an NFL offense, and Saban would much rather. I mean, remember he did this the last NFL guy that he, if you want to count Sarkisian as NFL, so the guy before him, Brian Dable. Saban kind of ran him out after one season. Yeah, they won a national title, but he didn't like the way that Dable called the offense. He did not like the way that he was handling the Jalen situation. And then, of course, Tua comes in, wins the national title and all this kind of stuff. But he immediately caught the next train out of town and took the Buffalo Bills offense coordinator job. And then you come in with guys that like this is all of this that Alabama's running is a variation of Lane Kiffin's offense. He brought this offense in, and Saban took it and molded it and adjusted it, and it's all Kiffin, his tempo offense. There's just different wrinkles to it. So there's nothing crazy, but it's whoever's calling the plays. And if it's still O'Brien next year, I don't know that you'll see a lot of that, but you could certainly see it if they were to bring in somebody else. So Python Love jumped in and said, Rattler isn't good at all. You're not wrong.
The word I've heard about Rattler is that he watches his own highlights. That's all I'll say about it.
Oh, God. That's the videos of him from when he was in high school are so
you can't put a kid in that much of a spotlight and expect him not to. Yeah, man. Gosh.
I know, but God, I saw it and was like, oh man. All right, let's move off of that one.
Get me off Alabama, because otherwise I'm going to start talking about all the drama with Kirby Smart taking pictures of the defensive board. But Nick Saban was photocopying Lane Kiffin's playbook. So
there you go. That's the way it goes. Hey, you come in and you're working in a spot. That's the way it's going to be. Ohio State 56, Michigan State 7. I don't even know where to begin with this. This was a 49-0 beatdown at the half. Michigan State could do nothing. They only had 224 total yards, only 66 rushing yards against Ohio State, which was honestly a little bit shocking to me. The only points that Michigan State scored were actually off of a turnover, but of course Ohio State got 7 points of their own off of a Michigan State turnover. 5 out of 6 in the red zone for Ohio State, 1 for 1 for Michigan State. This is, I look at these numbers, and Michigan State was a top 7 team. They were top 3 a couple of weeks ago. Like, this is unbelievable when you look at this. Now, the one thing I can't figure out, Travion Henderson, they only ran him 9 times for 63 yards. Did I miss an injury in here somewhere?
No, I know Master Teague was out, and so maybe they were being selective in deploying him so that they.
Master Teague ran. I mean, Master Teague ran 21 times for 95 yards.
What the heck? I thought he was limited.
They talked about him being
vice
limited.
Versa. Maybe I saw that backwards. I don't know, but yeah, that seems very odd because after the first 3 drives, I turned this off. But I thought I saw Master Teague was limited, and so I assumed Henderson's low rush total was because he was limited, and I read it wrong. Weird. It's
very strange. I understand.
Sorry, we're talking over each other.
No, you're good.
Teague has been their guy in cleanup time though all season. I did a project for a guy, a Big Ten guy earlier this season, and was looking at like whose rushes come in the most garbage time. And Master Teague was like the most in the nation by almost 20%. He's the cleanup guy. He's mopping up. So that makes sense that he has a ton. But I thought he was limited. I don't know.
He certainly cleaned up. Ohio State scored on their first 7 drives. Scored a touchdown on their first 7 drives. They missed a field goal in the second half. They threw an interception. They eventually scored a touchdown with 3:30 left on the clock. It was a 16-play, 75-yard drive that started with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter and then ended with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. I mean, completely taking the air out of the ball. In Michigan State completely got away from what they do. This was, you look at the numbers for Kenneth Walker, the third, 6 carries for 25 yards, and that's it. They threw the ball 38 times, completed 16 passes for 158 yards and a touchdown. I saw this coming because if you look at the numbers, obviously, you look at whether it's advanced stats or whatever else, you could just see that Michigan State's pass defense was really bad. Well, one of the ways to combat that is find a way to keep the ball away from them. And they just didn't do it. And I don't know why they did it that way. I mean, I have no idea what the thinking was. But hey, I mean, Mel Tucker's getting a 10-year, $95 million deal. So,
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, I had Ohio State as the third best rushing defense going into this game, but Michigan State only has the 62nd best rushing offense. I think they rush with volume and wait and try and get a big opportunity, and they just couldn't get successful enough plays to get enough volume to even have a chance to break off a big play against Ohio State. Man, they got thrashed. And even so, I think I was just looking at this. I think they only had the ball in Ohio State territory twice. And they missed a field goal, and then the touchdown that they scored where they started at their own 49.
Yeah, well, in the third quarter,
they couldn't do anything.
In the third quarter, they punted from the Ohio State 38. So, yeah, not great. So, yeah, the first 3 drives, 5 plays, 15 yards, and a punt after Ohio State took the opening kickoff. 12 plays, 86 yards for a touchdown.
Jeez.
They go down 13 plays, 55 yards on their next drive. Michigan State does, and missed a field goal. And then the next drive went 5 plays, 19 yards, and they fumbled, and Ohio State immediately scored. So, I mean, you can't give them short fields. You can't make mistakes. You can't be missing field goals. After that, it was 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 3 plays, negative 10 yards, punt. 3 plays, 5 yards, punt. 6 plays, 16 yards, punt. 4 plays, 38 yards, punt. 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. And then they finally got a touchdown late, but that was on a short field, So,
Yeah.
Josh jumps in on YouTube, said that's some LSU stats. Yeah, it's it's pretty absurd. Brian jumped in. He said, had Michigan State plus 19.5, brutal and over quick. Yes, it was a disaster. Only 1 3 and out for Ohio State, 5 for Michigan State. Just brutal. Let's talk about a game that was a lot more fun. UAB went to UTSA and lost 34-31. The post-game win expectancy numbers here per college football data was UAB 93%. If you did not see this, at the end of the game, what's the guy's name? Oscar something. Scoring plays. There we go. Oscar Cardenas caught a 1-yard touchdown pass that was actually tipped at the line of scrimmage, or tipped, I guess, behind the line of scrimmage, that was batted up in the air. He caught it in the end zone with 3 seconds left on the clock. Just absolutely fantastic. The fans rushed the field afterwards, like the Alamo Dome is where they play. It was unreal. And I've got family that were actually down there that were taking video from on the field, and that fan base is rabid. There were so many people at this game.
There were over 35,000 people in the Alamo Dome. A dude he sent a screenshot from the press box, 110 decibels. It was insane in there. On TV, you could tell they muted it because the announcers are so much louder. You could just hear kind of the dull roar. What an awesome game. This was just back and forth. In the first half, they basically just traded touchdowns. 5 consecutive drives, they scored, or four consecutive drives, they scored touchdowns, and then swapped field goals at the end of the half. This was just haymakers back and forth. Dude, shout out to Frank Harris, 25 of 36, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's awesome. But if you look at Zachary Franklin is the wide receiver, had a monster day for them, 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, Clark had 104 yards too. He was great on volume. Franklin had a one-handed catch in the first half for a touchdown that should be on every highlight reel ever. Yes. I mean, Harris put a good ball. It was like, this guy gets it or not. And he just brought it in. I mean, it was incredible. He brought it in. This game, Gary, my favorite thing about this game, it didn't matter for the playoff. They didn't say playoff in the broadcast. we were there for the Conference USA West Division title, and it ruled. It was one of my favorite games yesterday.
It was phenomenal. The way that UAB lost this game, they did throw one interception. I don't believe – did that one actually lead 2 points? I don't believe it did, but I don't remember. Let's see.
No, the interception, they punted after, and so maybe you could argue they flipped the field because – They punted and UAB starts at their own 10 and then they punt and
UTSA comes back
44.
Yeah.
And then they kick a field goal. But I mean, the defense has showed up in the second half after kind of an explosion in the first half. You have the UTSA touchdown to answer and then only a field goal until UAB scores in the fourth quarter. And then, I mean, UTSA had to drive the length of the field twice because they went for it they had 1st and 10 at the UAB 41. 4 straight incompletions, or three straight incompletions, and then went for it on 4th and 10. And then they had to drive 77 yards to score the winning touchdown. So it was stressful there for UTSA. They basically had to put together 2 scoring drives to get that last touchdown.
The way that UAB was able to lose this game, total yards, 474 for UAB, 375 for UTSA. UTSA, by the way, 34 rushing attempts for 52 yards. UAB held them to 1.5 a clip. And that is impressive against this offense, against Frank Harris Jr. and Sincere McCormick. To be able to do that, Sincere McCormick, by the way, 20 carries, 65 yards total with 1 touchdown, which that should tell you about the sack-adjusted yards right there. I mean, the fact that he had 65 and the team total was 52, that's everything you need to know. UTSA was actually 8 of 15 on third downs, 0 of 1 on fourth downs. UAB, 5 out of 12 on third down. So, it's not great, but, better than blah. So the way that UAB actually lost the game, look at penalty yards. I love looking at, these hidden yardage totals.
Oh, yeah.
6 penalties for 35 yards for UTSA. UAB had 13 for 124. That will get you beat time and time again. They extended drives for UTSA. They cost themselves yards, put themselves in bad situations. This was a fun ball game. I mean, UAB is such a well-coached team that you knew that they were going to come in here just guns blazing. And now as far as the standings go for Conference USA, we have actually got, pulling it up right now, we've got Western Kentucky on one side, and this was basically for the Conference USA West, and UTSA has got this thing wrapped up now. I mean, UAB's got 2 losses.
They can't lose.
Yeah, they can't lose it. So UTSA against Western Kentucky, and if you remember that game, we talked about it on this show. That was a hell of a game. Hell of a game. So I'm excited about this. Western Kentucky still has, who have they got? They still have at Marshall. Okay, so Marshall ain't out of this thing. Marshall's only 1 game back. That's going to be a fun ball game. Marshall, Western Kentucky next week is going to be a lot of fun. So, I
think so. If it's Western Kentucky, that's especially interesting to me because, dude, shout out to UTSA's defense. So 474 total yards for UAB. 383 of those came in the first half, and then 91 total yards in the second half. Absolutely turned the water off. The only touchdown was a short field after a pretty decent punt return for UAB. UTS, on the other hand, UAB, I mean, we have to shout out Rice here, I think is what I have to do. I'm trying to figure out where to go with this. But Rice has 2 of the weirdest wins, season-altering wins this season, last season. They beat UAB this year at UAB, 30-24. And then last year at the end of the season, remember, they beat Marshall, even though Grant Wells was hurt. So it's a little bit Rice just out of nowhere beat a really, really good UAB team. Other than Rice, UAB's losses at Georgia, of course, versus Liberty, understandable. And then at UTSA, this team is very good, way better than the 7-4, maybe 7-5, depending on how UTEP looks next week that they're going to finish. This is a really solid team.
The thing that, the Rice game is the one that just really, really irks you, right? Liberty you can understand, Georgia you can understand, and at an undefeated UTSA you can totally understand. The Rice game just made no sense. Just no sense. When you go back and you look at, the team stats on that, again, UAB had 10 penalties for 108 yards against Rice. You can't win ball games when you're having double-digit penalties for triple digits. I mean, that's bananas.
Oh my gosh. And Rice had scoring. We need to get out of Rice. I'm sorry. Rice had scoring drives of 50 and 51 yards to start the game to go up 13-0.
Yes.
That's wild. That's just fluke. That's crazy. Yeah,
and
short fields, man. Those are
it'll
something else.
Put you in a hole every time. Every time. All right, so let's move into the train wrecks. You know I always discuss these on the show on Sunday mornings. We're going to talk about all three of these together at the same time. We're talking Texas, Florida, and Nebraska because everybody in college football cannot stand to turn away from a train wreck, and that's what these programs have basically turned into at this point. West Virginia beats Texas 31-23. The postgame win expectancy was West Virginia 71%. Without Bijan Robinson, I did not expect much from this Longhorns offense at all. As far as the rushing offense goes, Keelan Robinson, who was at Alabama last year, transferred over to Texas because he thought the Alabama running back room was too loaded. He finally got his shot in this one, had 9 carries for 111 yards and 1 touchdown. But the other kid, Johnson, 15 carries, 77 yards. Like, Texas put up 203 yards rushing on 28 attempts. That's 7.3 a clip, and still couldn't really get anything done. Like, they did Hudson Card, 10 out of 16, 123 yards, 1 touchdown. Casey Thompson could do nothing. 4 out of 14, 29 yards passing and an interception. Jared Dagey, again, 27 out of 43, 290 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. What are we doing? Like, what is Jared Dagey? I don't. What did you call him? Schrodinger's quarterback.
Schrodinger's quarterback, man. When you think he's good, he's bad. When you think he's bad, he's good. He doesn't make sense. I mean, yeah. Just this is 2 really bad teams playing here. And the thing I noticed, like last week against Kansas, Texas just threw 4 really bad interceptions, like inexplicable. You can't do this interceptions, and that's why they lost. This week they threw 1 interception. But they went 2 for 10 on 3rd and 4th downs. 2 for 10.
Yes.
West Virginia only went 12 for 20. I mean, that's 60%. So like they were able to extend drives, but I mean, Texas just lost this game on 3rd down. I'm trying to see what that interception, the timing of that.
Let's see.
I honestly don't even see that in play-by-play. Play-by-play is a mess, man. Where the heck did they throw an interception?
I don't think West Virginia did throw an interception, but
No, Texas did.
Texas threw one, but you know what? They don't have it either. Yeah, play-by-play is so off this year.
Dude, it's so frustrating. Either way, Texas has committed the cardinal sin of trying to let the quarterbacks compete in real time, which you just absolutely can't do. I mean, I think that they pulled Card in the Arkansas game a little early, prematurely. Like that was just a salve. And then they beat the heck out of a couple really bad teams with Casey Thompson. And everyone thought, oh, clearly Casey Thompson's the answer. But their problems run really, really, really deep here. Obviously, locker rooms issues and everything. But, I mean, I look at this again. In the second half, Texas they just can't adapt at all. They lost Oklahoma and Oklahoma State games after big leads early. Whatever Sark is trying to do at halftime is just not working for this team.
But I will tell you this. I'm gonna give them a little bit of credit because they did outscore West Virginia in the second half. Like they outscored them 14-10. But the problem was you were already down, 21 to 10. Oh no, sorry, they outscored them 13-10. But again, you're already down going into the half. The first 4 drives for Texas, 3 plays, 6 yards punt, 3 plays, 1 yard punt, 3 plays, 4 yards punt, 3 plays, 3 yards punt. And then they're down 14-0 before they ever see the ball again. You're already in a hole, and there are so many cultural issues at Texas. And I told you in the offseason, when Sark was hired and he immediately started coming out basically spewing the boosters garbage right off the bat, I thought, man, we are going to have some problems here. Like this is not a changeover from Tom Herman, at all. This is honestly, I think Tom Herman would have handled it better because at least the players knew that Tom Herman was on their side. Like Herman did not get fired for wins and losses. He got fired specifically because he did not get along with the boosters. The board of trustees, the people in charge, the people that write the checks, because the players liked him, at least some of them did. Obviously, there were some that wanted to get out of there, but this Sark thing is, I mean, you're going to have to get some company men in there if you want to be successful at Texas. Like that's the only way they're going to turn this around.
I did hear that they have called a certain recently unoccupied Big 12 head coach to come talk about their defensive issues.
Huh. I could believe that. I
think that Tom Herman only wins the Kansas game otherwise. I think Tom Herman gets his team to they're 5-6 right now instead of 4-7.
Do you think
looking at this, I don't think they beat Oklahoma or Oklahoma State with Tom Herman. I think Baylor, dudes they should have beat Baylor, dude. They were dropping passes.
Yeah.
Iowa State, Kansas, and West Virginia, they just look flat. Like it looks like they've quit. Obviously, a lot's been going on since then. And so I do think this is going to be regime change issues, and they're going to have to there's going to be some churn.
What's their defensive coordinator's name? Pete something.
It starts with a K, and I want to call it something that it's not, so I never say it. But he was at Washington too.
Yeah. He was the one that I thought was kind of the brains behind the operation at Texas. At Washington. Like I never thought that Jimmy Lake was like the brains guy. But yeah, I thought this was a really good get for Sark, and it has not turned out well at all.
And they just don't have the personnel. I think they took something like 5 or 6 transfer linebackers trying to look for somebody to come play the right position. And so it's just been, it's rough scene for them. I think Del Conte, the athletic director, will have enough patience to give him, 3 years to turn this thing around. But there's ways that you could say, after everything that went on with Texas last year and after how underwhelming they've been for so long, you could say maybe this is a year 0 situation. But at the University of Texas, you don't get a year 0 really. And so if Del Conte can believe it's a year 0, I think that Sark can put the right pieces in with the talent to do what he wants to do. I think he's just what Texas has needed for years is someone to come in and say, shut up and let me win football games.
Yeah.
And if Sark's able to do that by, pretending to kiss boosters' butts publicly, maybe that'll work out.
Here's hoping. The thing that irritated me in the offseason is when the fan base and the boosters got all riled up about him hiring Mike Stoops as his linebackers coach. And then he, came back, told Mike, hey, sorry, I can't hire you here. It's like, okay, who's actually running the show then? Because
you can't negotiate with terrorists, man. You can't do it.
Exactly. If you think that he's the best fit for your football team, go hire him. Don't let anybody else tell you what to do with your job. But alas, here we are. They're talking about train wrecks, of course. Let's move into Missouri 24, Florida 23. This was not a yardage issue. This was, Florida outgained them 360 to 286 total yards. Florida only had 93 rushing yards. I don't know what Missouri has done as far as their rushing defense is concerned, but the last 2 weeks against South Carolina and Florida, they have given up less than 100 yards to both of them, and it is kind of unbelievable. 2.4 yards per rush for Florida. Luckily, Emory Jones could throw it a little bit, 20 out of 32, 261 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I don't – that number cannot be right. I think these stats are so jacked up. How did Florida score? Goofy. They got 23 points. How did they actually – all right, I'm looking at the drives because I did not watch all of this game. Why would you?
Why would you, yeah.
All right, so field goal, touchdown. But who scored the damn touchdowns? 3 plays, 50 yards. I have no idea. I don't know. So I'm looking at stat broadcast. Is the internet
broken? What's happening here?
I don't know. I have no idea. Which Larry Pilgrim jumped in and said, just woke up, go Utes. Yeah, he's our resident Utah fan. Absolutely love it for you, Larry. Congratulations. I know you're excited. Now, hey, I had somebody ask me, this is a little off topic. I had somebody ask me last night in my Twitter DMs, is this the biggest win in Utah history? And I said, absolutely not. What? This is a big win, and it feels huge in the moment, but what about the Sugar Bowl win? What about the Fiesta Bowl win? What about the conference championship?
Alabama and the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, no. This is not. Also, Kyle Whittingham is peak. Cool guys don't look at explosions. He's like, yeah, dude, we should win the Pac-12 every year. This doesn't faze me. I love that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, wait. Can I ask you a question too? Because we're looking at Florida scoring or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm going to flip. Missouri 1-score loss at Kentucky. one-score loss at Boston College. If Missouri is 9-3 right now, I mean, what I have a very low opinion of what Eli's been doing there, but they're like a couple of plays away from 9-3. The last couple of games, I mean, against Vandy, South Carolina, Florida, they have just beaten teams that like feasibly they could have lost to, not like convincingly, but like they easily could have lost 2 of those games. Can't blame them for getting beat by Georgia, but I mean, I'm not ready to put Arkansas on upset alert, but I am saying like Missouri's playing pretty good ball here at the end of the season. And if you look at their entire resume, they might not be as bad. I mean, the 62 points to Tennessee doesn't look as bad in retrospect. Tennessee can sling the ball a little bit. I mean, Arkansas better not have a letdown after Alabama because Missouri, I think, is a team who's shown they can get somebody who's down.
Yes, they can absolutely get somebody that's down. So cheers to Missouri, which, by the way, the stats would tell you, obviously, post-game win expectancy, Florida was 76% here. They had every opportunity to win this ball game, and there was nothing that stands out as far as, anything in this game. And they did have 9 penalties for 80 yards.
1st and 10 at the Missouri 30 field goal. First and goal at the Missouri 2 field goal. First and what's the other field goal? 1st and 10 at the Missouri 24 field goal.
So
and then they scored.
Here's the thing, though. So we're talking about scoring opportunities, right? Florida had 7 inside the Missouri 40. They scored 16 points. That's only 2.29, right? That's not great.
That's not good.
But Missouri only had 5, and they scored 16 points as well. That's 3.2. So it's not like it wasn't like Missouri dominated this football game, right? Obviously, it went to overtime.
Florida gave this away. Like Missouri played well enough to capitalize on Florida being done. Yeah.
Yes. So can we? I mean, do we talk about Dan possibly like knowing what the market is like? I refuse to believe that they are going to let him go without having some kind of a plan. This seemed to happen so quickly, but also you got to figure out what your program is going to be, right? You can't just fire somebody, go hire somebody, and then hope for the best. You gotta actually plan this stuff out. I don't think that they get him to fire the offensive line coach and the defense coordinator if they're going to let him go at the end of the season, right?
Yeah. Unless that was just a true like desperation move to get some cover. I think their best case scenario kind of midway through the season was like Mullen takes an NFL job and all's well that ends well. But something else that complicates this. So Miami looks like it's going to open. LSU's open. USC's open. Arizona State, something I forgot about Arizona State regarding a certain candidate who Florida would be interested in hiring, and I think would be very interested in Florida. Arizona State has huge NCAA hammer about the swing down. I forgot about this totally this season. Everything I've been looking at a coaching search completely off of my mind. They're gonna sacrifice Herm to try and get out from that hammer. And man, I think that ultimately there are so many good jobs open. Who are they gonna hire?
That's the issue, right? It's who do you hire? Because you're Florida, you're a great job, all that, but it just seems very chaotic in Gainesville. And I mean, if you're Billy Napier, which I'll say the name, you don't have to. If you're Billy Napier and you've got all these different options, right? Which I personally think TCU is going to go after Sonny Dykes, which I don't know why you would, but either way, I thought that those
I'm not breaking news. Napier's not going to TCU. Yeah, that's
okay.
Over.
So that's okay.
Dykes to TCU. Yeah,
that's done. All right. So Napier still has Virginia Tech, and then there's Florida. That's an option, and then possibly Arizona State if he wants to go deal with NCAA crap, right? And then so Josh jumps in. God, I can't wait for LSU to finally announce who the man is. And Larry Pilgrim said ASU got shoes issues. Yeah, there's a lot going on at Arizona State. It's a train wreck. I don't know, like, if you're Florida, maybe you just play this out, see what happens next year, because I don't necessarily think it would be crazy to think that if you don't have Emory Jones, you might actually be a better football team. Like this is all I'm brainstorming right now, right? This is Nebraska with Adrian Martinez. Like, would you like to see this coach one more season with a different guy? Right? Sometimes if you got the wrong guy, there's just nothing you can do. If you get a full season of Anthony Richardson healthy, give him all the first-team reps in the offseason, what does he do? Now, if you have another bad season with another bad quarterback or whatever, then okay. But this whole jumping the gun on some of these coaches is there's a lot of programs that could be setting themselves back quite a bit. And this
well, and I think this is maybe so two wrinkles into that. One, Anthony Richardson removed all Florida stuff from his Twitter bio last night, which is
okay. I did not see that. I'm glad you paid attention to that. I did not see that.
Somewhere SEC Mike retweeted it. That's the only reason I saw it. The other thing here, I think that Dan Mullen is in like and maybe even Scott Frost is like in an anti Matt Campbell situation at Iowa State. It's like Campbell with Purdy is kind of been limited by Purdy, but basically only succeeded because of Purdy.
Yes.
And so
there is a ceiling.
For every reason you have to think that like Florida might be better if they can figure out the quarterback position with someone else, you might think like, oh, Iowa State might be worse there. I think that you just don't want to get in a bidding war for Lane Kiffin if the Napier stuff doesn't work out. Like Lane Kiffin probably sent out 20 text message last night that was just like, pay up, nerds. Like I'm not showing you my binder. You can pay me. So I wonder what Florida thinks they can do, especially with like Washington open. I mean, they're just big jobs too. Washington and USC and LSU. I just don't know that you want to compete for those guys, knowing that like Mullen's a little crazy, but like Mullen has been successful in the past and Georgia's a flying death machine right now. I just don't think you want to try and make a hire and end up with trying to talk yourself into Sean Clark being the future at Florida or something.
Yeah. Who was it? Pete Thamel, I think, said, and this was weeks ago, he said, I have to wonder if it wouldn't be a smart idea for both programs if Penn State and Florida were to trade head coaches, like an NFL trade, take James Franklin down to Gainesville, take Dan Mullen up to Penn State. Both fan bases, I think, would actually be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. Like, again, change of scenery is like an underrated aspect.
Yes, very much so.
And there's something to be said about like, I mean, it's kind of like cleaning off your desk, right? And you just get to, hey, it's like, oh man, I've been meaning to rearrange the way these lights and this camera are for weeks. And if I just cleaned everything off and started fresh, maybe I'd be able to set it up the same exact stuff, but I'd set it up in a little bit different way. I'd take care of some stuff maybe that would work for Dan Mullen. I mean, the one thing about, there's just no rest in that for either team. I mean, I think the SEC East is a little bit easier than the Big Ten East. No, I don't think that. That's objectively true. And so, like, I know that, Penn State is probably not psyched about having to play Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State every single year. Florida, you're basically, if I can just not get embarrassed by Georgia, I should beat everyone else in this program. So that's interesting to me.
Yes.
Maybe I hire Gus Malzahn to come back around.
Larry jumped in. So Ball Python Love, of course, said smack that like button for the hosts. Yes, we certainly appreciate that for sure. And then Larry jumped in. I'm wondering if Slovis and Jaden Daniels entered the transfer portal. Mullen guys quit, I think. Haven't watched, so just speculating. They certainly don't seem to be giving 100%. It doesn't seem like that, considering we have seen them play really, really well, and now it is just a complete cluster. Like I have no idea what to expect from this team at any point. So maybe I could see Jaden Daniels leaving because it's not like he's played great. He's supposed to be a superstar. Jim Johnson, keep your hands off Gus Malzahn. I don't think you got anything to worry about with Gus. I don't think Gus is leaving UCF right now. I could see Slovis or Jaden Daniels in Gainesville. I don't know that Slovis brings anything to the table as far as the SEC competition is concerned. But, Jaden Daniels is intriguing. Him with Dan Mullen could be real interesting. Like, that would be a lot of fun.
Would you rather Spencer Rattler or Jaden Daniels?
I take Jaden Daniels in a heartbeat.
Interesting.
In a heartbeat. Like, not even close. I think his ceiling is so much higher than Spencer Rattler's, so much higher. Like, it's just unbelievable because I think that Jaden Daniels can actually read a defense.
Yeah, that's I think that might be true.
And in the SEC,
one thing I was
you would need
about,
that.
Yeah. I think there's two things that are interesting to me. One, Bailey Zapp transferred up, right?
Yes.
So technically could still transfer.
He'd
have to.
Isn't this his last season? I guess he would still have a COVID season, right?
Yeah, but so I think that's probably the logistics of that are too crazy. Then I was kind of wondering, like, is there anybody will we see somebody at like the FCS level come up and take over? Nobody's putting up the numbers that Zapp was, but I wonder if there's not like if there's not going to develop a new market for like, hey man, you've developed this guy for like 3 years. He's gotten reps. Let's bring him up from the farm team. Let's let him start at Florida for 2 years or whatever.
Well, but here's the situation with Western Kentucky. Remember, they brought up the OC and like all of his receivers. He already had. You'd have to do that same thing over again. Gary Lewis jumped in on YouTube, said 2020 or 21 ASU OC Hill failed Daniels for 1.5 seasons. And Jim John said Spencer Rattler gives me Tate Martell vibes. Now, he ain't Tate Martell. Come on now. Come on. Tate Martell's a different breed. Like, Spencer Rattler is not that.
Do you know who's leading? Okay, because I went down a rabbit trail here to be like, hey, who's leading the FCS in passing yards? Maybe that's it. Do you know who's leading the FCS in passing yards? This is such a great name.
I have no idea who's leading the FCS right now.
Cole Kelly.
Cole Kelly. Where does he play?
At Southeastern Louisiana, Arkansas. He was at Arkansas 2 years ago.
Phenomenal.
The big dude.
Good Lord. Yeah, I could totally see that.
That's so fun. Oh my gosh, that's
Louisiana.
Awesome.
Southeast Louisiana. So I have on here Wisconsin 35, Nebraska 28. Nebraska does this every time out.
Started with Florida and got to Cole Kelly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it happens. It happens. 21 Auburn and Florida. WTF from Gary Lewis. Like, well, Auburn just Bo Nix got hurt. Anders Carlson got hurt. Like, what do you expect at this point? That's actually the next game on the board. We're not going to talk about Wisconsin, Nebraska. Nebraska does this every time. They look like they could be a really good football team, and they make mistakes and cost themselves. They had 2 turnovers against Wisconsin, and that was basically the name of the game. That was it. Wisconsin was able to score one more touchdown than them because of that. So moving on from there, and how long do I have you today? If I got you for like another 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I'm just hanging out on Sunday morning. I would do some work at some point, but I'm hanging out.
Let's talk South Carolina 21, Auburn 17. And Brian Harsin, this thing is quickly headed into the ditch. Now, they do have Alabama at home this weekend, and crazy, maniacal shit happens in Jordan-Hare Stadium that Thanksgiving weekend every other year for whatever reason. It's always something insane, but this year there is no Bo Nix magic. We would basically have to see TJ Finley do something that he hasn't done ever, really. So, look, South Carolina did not get out of their game plan. They did exactly what they wanted to do the entire ball game. Auburn came out, was able to score quickly, and then they did nothing for the rest of the game. They had 2 touchdowns on their first 3 drives. One of those was aided by, it was a short field. Really, both of them were short fields. The first drive was 6 plays, 49 yards. The second one was 7 plays, 61 yards. After that, this was exactly what you would think it would be, right? Low scoring, a lot of running the football, and Tank Bigsby, 22 carries, 164 yards and a touchdown. You had 149 yards rushing on 41 attempts from South Carolina. None of those were touchdowns. Jason Brown threw 3 touchdown passes. He had the 1 interception that led to a touchdown the other way. But this is awesome. Like, I love seeing this from teams that are trying to establish a culture, and that's exactly what Shane Beamer is attempting to do. On the other side, I'm trying to talk really nice about South Carolina while also getting to what is going on at Auburn. And obviously, your starting quarterback's out, your kicker's out. You got a couple other guys that are actually out. I'm so curious about what is going on because I've heard all kinds of, Harsin doesn't like it in the SEC, and obviously there were a bunch of rumors about he may be going to Washington. Well, that all kind of plays on the idea that he is actually vaccinated, which I don't want to get political on the show, But if he's not vaccinated at Auburn, he can lose his job at the beginning of December. So there may be a lot more going on under the surface here than anybody really knows. But I can't figure this football team out. I don't know what Auburn is because I've seen them play really, really good multiple times and also seen them play really bad. Next week, by the way, huge for our buddy Kyle on the BetUS show because he has got Auburn under 7 wins, and he certainly needs to cash that one. So, yeah, I'm curious. What did you think about this one? Because I wasn't shocked by this. I had bet South Carolina, but this Auburn team does not look like the same team that we saw just along the lines of scrimmage just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I haven't gone too deep into their injury issues, but it does seem. I mean, like Texas A&M just absolutely murdered, and then Mississippi State they just gave up. I mean, I don't know how you lose that game. You just give up, and then this game again. I don't know that it came down to whether that gentleman touched the ball or not, but I think that's a hilarious SEC ending regardless.
Yes.
And that if you're Auburn, you should not be in a situation in a game that you're favored by more than a touchdown of needing a microscope to decide whether you lost possession on a punt or not. I really think that, one, if Auburn opens, dude, I'm going to use my one curse word. Sorry. Shit is going to get wild. Wild.
Yes. It's already a crazy coaching carousel season anyway. And we know it's going to get even more crazy. But, God, you want to talk about fun hypotheticals? If Lincoln were to take the LSU job and then Josh Heupel takes the Oklahoma job, because I'm sure that he would be one of the next ones up, right, because of what he's done at Tennessee. If you have...
Yeah, but they fired him. I don't know they like it. Anyway, go. Yeah, that's fine. That's
agreed. But say they've got Heupel that Oklahoma brings in after one season. So Tennessee loses a coach after one season. Auburn loses a coach after one season. Imagine all of this other crap going on, right? If you have Tennessee and Auburn both open in the same cycle again, a year later, like without a bunch of NCAA stuff and whatever else. Like, this is awesome.
We feasibly could have, in 2 weeks, Gary, we could have Miami, Virginia Tech, Florida, Auburn, LSU, Washington, USC, Washington State, TCU. Am I missing one?
You could go on and toss in Penn State in there if Franklin leaves for one of those other jobs. But
then that solves one of the other problems. Yeah.
So we could have a lot of big programs that are.
You know who might get paid?
I have no idea who might get paid at this point.
Barry Odom might get paid this cycle. Tennessee or Auburn could do way worse on this short notice in this market.
I think Barry Odom would need to go somewhere where the fan base will not be so openly negative, because both of those will be, right? Like, there are some fan bases where he can go.
I'm at the point I wouldn't take. I don't think I would take either of those jobs. Tennessee. Just what I've seen from Tennessee fans this year with like the slightest improvement in situation and them still to be complaining. Like, I don't know that I would take either of those.
Yes.
It's going to be weird. I wonder if more people aren't going to try and do like Colorado hired Carl Dorrell. Like,
yeah, which by the way, Colorado won. It's not one of my games that I wrote down, but Colorado beat Washington yesterday. Like,
yeah,
I really needed Washington to win that ball game so I could go and cash my under there. But alas, here we are. Got a few questions in the chat here. Will Florida State be able to retain? No. Will Nevada Reno be able to retain Jay Norvell? I thought he was talking about Mike Norvell. Ball Python Love said, I hope so. He signed until 2024. The way that things are going, I could certainly see Jay Norvell getting a job. But I mean, obviously, it all depends. It all depends. The last 2 weeks has not helped him at all. If he leaves, bring back Chris Alt. Yeah, I could totally see that. Gary Lewis said, great point about Harsin and inoculation. It's why I tune in. I learn from you guys every week. Chris Alt and Dennis Erickson, two of the greatest offensive minds in college football during their era. Alt's pistol formation is still used in the NFL and college football right now. It is. It absolutely, that pistol formation, Alabama loves running stuff out of that pistol. They have not done so much under Bill O'Brien, but yeah, they have run a pistol a lot. Let's see. Great out west college football head coaching candidate, Kalen DeBoer of Fresno. Yes. DeBoer for sure. But you got to be – Fresno was like the perfect fit for him as far as being a head coach because there is a ton of support. Like they really give him basically everything that he needs. Baylor staff is going to get picked at, said Larry. And Gary Lewis said, I'm not a huge Jay Norvell fan. Or I was not a huge Jay Norvell fan. I will tell you this. I like Jay Norvell. Like I don't think that he's a guy that you expect to win like championships from. But I think he's a guy that can like build a foundation for a program. It's very much a Mike Leach kind of thing with what he runs. Like you're always going to run up against somebody that knows how to stop it. But for the most part, if you're wanting to get from the bottom up to about the middle tier, he's like a really, really good coach. It's very much Chris Creighton at Eastern Michigan for me. Like he's somebody that's going to win. In some years he'll do. Some years he will be 8-4. Some years 9-3. But for the most part, you're hovering around bowl game territory, and for some programs, that's really good. So yeah, that's the way I feel about that.
I think there's a couple interesting guys out west, like Kurt Maddox, the San Diego State head coach, has been around and doesn't necessarily have the Brady Hoke stink on him. And his defense has been great for a while and really innovative. I know a bunch of guys like his clinic videos and stuff. Yeah. I wonder how long until speaking of stink, I wonder how long until somebody can hire Kendall Briles as their head coach.
That's I would think soon. Like
I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
And then the other one that is interesting is at Kent State, Sean Lewis and Andrew Sauter. That offensive coordinator was a Briles guy at Baylor. I think that people would like him for sure. So interesting to see if somebody Texas adjacent hires them.
If Kent State wins the MAC this year, I would almost guarantee he's gone this season.
Yeah.
Because right now it looks like it's Kent State and Northern Illinois, and Kent State already beat them once. So I could certainly see that. Let's move on as far as the games are concerned, so that I can fit a few more in here. Clemson 48, Wake Forest 27. Post-game win expectancy for Clemson was 100%. This was not even close. Clemson's offense finally woke up. 7.3 yards per play. They had 543 total yards on the day, 333 rushing. They held Wake Forest to only 36 yards rushing. This was a beating, just an absolute beating. DJ, again, didn't look great, 11 out of 19, but 208 yards. He was able to basically just throw the ball up and let his receivers go get it. Like, Wake Forest defense is really bad, like worse than I thought they were, which was shocking because UConn, they only gave up a 30% success rate against Clemson last week. And this week, I mean, it was just a whole different ball game. Looking at the success rate here for Clemson, pulling it up. I mean, it had to be just unbelievable. Success rate on the day was 56%. They had a 50% or better success rate in all four quarters on offense. That's just unbelievable. And of course, I bet on Wake Forest. Like I feel, every time I do this,
I wanted to believe in the Wake Forest offense, but they've solved the offense. And honestly, that Clemson rushing, that kind of came out of nowhere. The other thing to look at, I mean, coming into this game, I had Clemson very, very bad on 3rd and 4th downs. And the way that they were able to rush, I think it it entirely changed the game. They went, this is loading and I'm sorry that I'm vamping.
Oh no, you're good.
I had them 97th and 3rd and 4th downs coming into this game. And they went 7 of 11, 8 of 11 if you count a fourth down there. So Clemson, Wake Forest all season has been bad on 3rd and 4th downs, but Clemson's offense has not been able to move the ball and convert. And they were able to do that with impunity, 72% yesterday. And so, I mean, Dave Clawson said at the half, he said that, they have the athletes. If we can't keep the ball and extend drives, and if we can't stop them on 3rd down and get our athletes on the field, we're in a bad way. And I mean, that's 100% what happened is Clemson just was able to make those 3rd down plays that they haven't. And that is like multiplicative, right? You make one, you get a chance at the second, the defense is a little more tired, then you get a chance at third. And they just wore down a team that they're obviously more talented than. Wake Forest, very, very fun, but this does, you talk about a lot about like in mismatch games where a team is bad, but they have good recruiting and they play another bad team, that like special teams is going to be an equalizer because, the good team is playing 4 and 5 stars on special team. The bad team is playing walk-ons. this is a little bit what kind of felt like what happened with Wake Forest's defense is like they've got a little offensive success, but on aggregate, the talent and balance was so overwhelming that if Clemson had just a spark on third down, they were kind of able to do what they wanted.
Oh, 100%. Gary Lewis jumped in and said Clemson D-line won the game against Wake. Yes, very much. Clemson had 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss in this game, compared to Wake, who had 0. Just unbelievable. They had 4 tackles for loss, but 0 sacks. As far as turnovers go, this will lose you the game every time. Both teams had 3 turnovers, but Clemson was able to score 14 points off the wins that they generated. So that'll stop you. That'll stop you. Moving on to the AAC, and buddy, Cincinnati, 48-14 over SMU. It was 100% post-game win expectancy for the Bearcats. This is what I told you on the BetUS show that I was worried about because I felt like the matchup played directly into Cincinnati's hands. Cincinnati gave up 66 passing yards in this game. Tanner Mordecai was 15 out of 26 for 66 yards with 1 touchdown. They ran the ball, SMU did, 31 times for 133 yards, and they weren't great at running the football. Like they still had more success running than they did passing, but this was a woodshed beating. You knew at some point, it's kind of like with Clemson, right? You knew that Cincinnati was going to wake up, and you're just hoping that it's not this game, right? If you had the other side. 4 of the first 5 drives for Cincinnati were touchdowns. And one of those was, of course, a fumble from SMU that led to led to another touchdown. It wasn't a short field, but
well, the first 2 were short fields. The first because I turned it off after the SMU fumble because I was like, oh, there goes my bet, whatever. So SMU punted. Cincinnati special teams returned it for 22 yards to Cincy 47. Cincinnati 1 play, 47-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Then SMU punts from their own 13 and it's blocked. SMU first and 10 or Cincinnati first and 10 at the SMU 25. And then that fumble, SMU was moving the ball. That's the only time all game SMU really moved the ball. And Trey Seegers just got the ball knocked out, straight up lost it. And they were first and 10 at the Cincinnati 24. They were knocking on the door. And then Cincy drives 78 yards for the touchdown there. So that point off turnovers wasn't like they necessarily, they benefited from special teams more than they benefited from that. And then Cincy missed 2 field goals in the half. Like
in the middle of it.
This could have been so much worse.
It's in the middle of it. And SMU did not score until the fourth quarter. Did not score. They missed a field goal of their own after a 10-play drive. Cincy, turnover on downs late in the ball game. I mean, the whole thing was bananas. So at this point, I do have written down here, with all the chaos that has happened with Oregon and, of course, Michigan State getting beat and whatnot, I think at this point, because you've got Michigan and Ohio State playing this week, I think Cincinnati is a favorite to get into the playoff at this point. Because I don't know who else. This all comes down to Notre Dame and Cincinnati, right? Oklahoma State might be able to find their way in there. Oklahoma maybe, but we see what the committee thinks about Oklahoma at this point. It looks like it's going to be Cincinnati in there if they can win out. Now, obviously, they've got Houston in the AAC title game, which is going to be a hell of a ball game. I'm just the fact that everybody was so worked up for so long about this, and now here they are, like Cincy doing what Cincy is supposed to do. This looks like.
So I'm looking at this because basically the way that Cincy gets left out is Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship.
But even then, you would still need, because Ohio State or Michigan is going to be out, right? So even then,
right. So you have SEC championship winner, then you have Ohio State. Those are locked, right? Ohio State, Michigan winner, whatever.
Yes.
Those are locked, right?
Yeah.
And then you have, I'm looking at the playoff rankings for the first time this season, Gary. I just want to let you know, this is a big deal. I normally don't look at them until the last week because they don't matter and we don't need a playoff. But I think the problem here for Cincinnati is, they need to.
They need to win convincingly.
Are they playing Houston?
Are
they playing Houston right now?
No, they're playing Houston in the AAC title
East Carolina.
Game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they need East Carolina. Game. They need Houston to win big, and they need to win big. I don't think Notre Dame can beat Stanford bad enough to jump.
I don't think so either, because Cincinnati's going to have another data point.
But then Oklahoma State, I think best case scenario for Oklahoma State is they beat Oklahoma convincingly, which puts Baylor into the Big 12 championship game. And then they beat a Baylor that looks a lot better than when they played. Yep. I think that Oklahoma State at that point could jump Cincy, especially if Cincy isn't convincing and find their way in. But the deal is here. I mean, Cincy very likely to go to the playoff, especially if Alabama is who we think they are right now. I think that they won't be able to do anything against Georgia. That may not hold true. But the problem, Gary, is not that Cincy can't get into the playoff. It's that they can't play themselves in. They have to rely on all this other crap, even if they do everything exactly right. That's the problem. The problem is that Cincy's national championship is not in their hands, where it is for 60, honestly, probably 30 other teams. It is for 100 other FBS teams. They literally cannot play themselves in the national championship conversation. They have to have other stuff happen. It just so happens that this year other stuff is happening for them. So this isn't like a vindication of the playoff committee. Also, with all the, again, playoff committee, what do they want? Eyeballs. With all the talk about Cincinnati, they're just making a business decision. They don't care. They don't care at all about what a college football championship should be. They don't care at all about G5 versus P5. They care about eyeballs. And this year, it might be the most profitable decision to put Cincinnati in. In the past, it has not been. And so it's still about eyeballs, and teams still can't play their way to a championship, which is a flaw.
Well, tell me this. Who actually brings more eyeballs right now? Would it be Cincinnati or would it be Oklahoma State? I think it might be Cincinnati.
Yes, not just in terms of comparing fan bases, but like narratives and everything. Absolutely.
Yeah, narratives. Yeah. I'm just talking like overall narratives because obviously the way that Alabama is able to get like huge ratings this season is because they play a ton of close games, right? That's the way that those ratings actually work. People realize, there's a shot they could get beat. I need to tune in and watch this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Ohio State, because this Ohio State-Michigan State game is not going to have a large rating. Like it's just not. Like it'll be big because it's ABC at noon, but otherwise, we all know how these things work. Cincinnati, I mean, last year they were undefeated playing in the Peach Bowl against Georgia, and that game drew like almost 10 million viewers. I mean, that's a pretty sizable audience. And it was on New Year's Day and all that standalone window, all that good stuff. Gary Lewis jumped in, Cincinnati over Oklahoma State for TV ratings. Yeah. I mean, it just the way that it goes, because there are still a lot of like casual fans that don't realize what Oklahoma State is doing. So if it becomes Oklahoma State, then now I guess the thing that could be interesting here is if Oklahoma were to beat Oklahoma State in Bedlam next week, and then they had to beat Oklahoma State again, then does the committee say, maybe we had them pegged wrong? Because that would be the brand matchup you don't want if you're Cincinnati.
Because I think that Wake Forest is falling a lot. Michigan State is falling a lot, which means Baylor and Oklahoma are both plausibly top 10 games for Oklahoma State over the next 2 weeks. But then also Oklahoma will have a chance at 2 top 10 wins. If they go and blow the doors off Oklahoma State like they have done in the past twice in a row.
Yeah, it'll be tough to keep them out. Because people will watch Oklahoma, especially if there's a chance that they get beat. So
Cincinnati just needs to root for Auburn next week. That's what they need to do.
There you go. There you go.
Takes care of all that.
Oklahoma 28, Iowa State 21 on this, by the way. Oklahoma win percentage, post-game win expectancy, was 96% on this. And 96 passing yards for Oklahoma, 209 rushing yards. It's completely flip-flopped the other way. Breece Hall held to 58 yards rushing and a touchdown. This was a very interesting game. I had this on my right side TV over here yesterday and could not take my eyes off of it for a large portion of it, because obviously Michigan State, Ohio State was nothing and whatnot. But this game, I could not figure out what Iowa State was trying to do. They had so many opportunities to take control of this ball game. It felt like they had momentum the entire game, and they were never able to really get over the hump for whatever reason. Oklahoma scored a touchdown in every quarter, and it took until the fourth quarter for Iowa State to score 2 touchdowns and really get it rolling, and it looked like almost they just ran out of time. But Iowa State fumbled the ball 6 times. They only lost 1 of them. What are we doing? Hold on to the ball.
So that's something that's really interesting about this game. End of half, Brock Purdy fumbles and Jalen Redmond returns it for a touchdown. If this game is tied, again, it's path dependent, things change, whatever. But if this game is tied 21-21, Iowa State then at 1st and 10 at the Oklahoma 21 doesn't have to pass the ball, doesn't have to risk anything, can just play for the field goal and win. This game was so uncomfortably close for a couple of reasons. One, Oklahoma's defensive front just annihilated Iowa State's offensive line. Iowa State's offensive line is having a very bad morning this morning because they just got absolutely blown up the entire game. You count on the Brock Purdy mistake that was kind of the equalizer. Caleb Williams has to learn to throw the backside slant every time. I have a friend, shout out to Keegan Renault. He does some awesome Oklahoma stuff, and he'll just send me a screenshot. Every bad play that Caleb Williams has, there is an open receiver on the other side of the field that he should have moved to. But he's trying to be a hero. Same thing with Rattler, just trying to be a hero and cannot throw the check down. If OU lowered their average depth of target by like 10 yards by just taking the check downs, they would beat everyone 52-10. Like,
so here's the issue with that,
people
right?
Up.
Like the problem there is that Spencer Rattler was only taking the check downs, and now Caleb Williams is only throwing to these other guys, right?
Yeah.
Like it is a very odd conundrum that they've got. Caleb Williams, 8 out of 18, 87 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's so weird. Like, Kennedy Brooks has been awesome for them this year. 17 carries, 115 yards in this game. The fact that he was able to do that against Iowa State's defense is pretty impressive. Iowa State held the ball, by the way, for nearly 40 minutes of this game. 38-20 for them, 21-40 for Oklahoma. And yet, because of the mistake, because of everything else, it felt like Oklahoma just had this game from the get-go. It really, the duration, it just felt like it was inevitable that Oklahoma was going to win this game. It's just bananas.
In a really boring and annoying fashion, yeah.
Yes. I do have written down here, Baylor 20, Kansas State 10. Baylor 100% post-game win expectancy. Was there anything out of this one that, I mean, it looked boring?
100% post-game win expectancy is super weird to me because basically what happened is Kansas State missed a field goal, and then Baylor got a muffed punt at the beginning of the game, and they scored a short field touchdown. Otherwise, this was like a slugfest. Yeah. And so that's interesting, that post-game win expectancy. And again, everybody has their own flavor or whatever. But to me, this feels way more like a toss-up because it was effectively decided by, equal number of scoring opportunities, equal number of defense, and then a muffed punt return was the deciding factor there. And that seems super random. So again, Baylor all season been well coached and bounces go their way a ton, and lucky and good are highly correlated in college football. So good on them for taking advantage. The only other thought I have is Gary Bohannon went down with a non-contact injury with the hamstring. I hope he's okay. That looked real uncomfortable.
The kid that brought him,
because again,
Blake Shapen. I hope that's how you say it. 16 out of 21, 137 yards. Like they were still successful with him in the ball game.
Jeff Grimes knows how to maximize quarterback strengths, man. Like he just knows how to set a quarterback up for success. It's been very impressive.
Yeah, this was interesting, very interesting. Deuce Vaughn, by the way, 11 carries, 128 yards, 1 touchdown. Like averaged 11.6 clip.
But all of that, Gary, if you take out that one, I think he had 175-yard touchdown, maybe
65-yard, yeah,
65. And so you go beside that, then man, his day looked real bad. Baylor was very frustrating to him outside of that one long run.
And so, you take that one long run, but he had 11 carries, and you take out the long run, he still had, that's still over, almost 7 yards a carry? Like, did he have a couple of long runs?
Maybe there was another long run. I just remember, maybe it's just the first half, but I just was thinking, he had 100 total yards?
He had 128 on 11 carries.
128. And so 60, and then so 60 on 10, I guess, outside of that is not awful. But yeah, they just couldn't get him going really, except for a couple concentrated plays.
Well, they only ran him 11 times. They ran the ball 21 times in what really was kind of a slugfest. Baylor ran 48 times for 174. I could not understand. Like they were throwing They threw the ball a lot, and I understand why they were doing that, because if you look up the advanced stats and whatnot, the weakness of this Baylor defense really was the secondary, right? Teams have been able to have success throwing the football on them, but it did not look like Skylar Thompson was able to have success. I mean, he was 15 out of 29 for 158 yards. So, I thought Kansas State. I actually picked them in like our Winning Cures Everything Pick'em on Friday's show, because I thought Baylor hangover. Kansas State's been playing really, really well. Skylar Thompson's been throwing the ball well. That looks like a mismatch against that secondary, and it did not play out to fruition at all. Next game on the board right quick, and we'll try and hurry through these last ones. Florida State 26, Boston College 23, and they almost gave it up there at the end, didn't they? I mean, just
they tried. Holy cow, they tried. They needed a 4th down stop. They got the pick on the 4th down. Florida State, 2022 sleeper team, man. They are 5-6 now. They lost to Jacksonville State. That hurts because, man, they would be in a bowl game if they had just beaten the FCS team. But they get a chance against a spiraling Florida team to get a bowl here. I think they've been better than their record. The advanced stats love them. It'll be interesting to see what they can do next year.
Early offshore lines, by the way, which I have a feeling that this will shift, because I just got a text from Jonathan Hood from ESPN Chicago. He said, why is Florida favored by 10 over Florida State? And I have no idea.
Do they do that neutral site, or do they do that home and home?
No, that's home and home. That's home and home.
Okay.
So, which I don't think it matters this year. Like, I think Florida State is a team that wants to be there. The thing that surprised me in this game, Phil Jurkovich, 10 out of 24 passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's a QB rating under 100. Jordan Travis was 20 out of 34, 251 yards and 3 touchdowns. He ran the ball 13 times for 26 yards. Travis has big time improved this season. Like, this team looks like they are fighting for Mike Norvell, which is a nice change of pace for the Seminoles. I mean, it's just completely different from what we've seen.
And it's the offensive line, which is the problem with Taggart before. We don't have to do a full deep dive here. Yeah. But it's so hard to fix an offensive line pipeline. And last year, Jordan Travis had the most scramble percent on dropbacks. Like, the most percent of his dropbacks were scrambles out of anybody in the FBS. He was creating some value with his legs, but he just didn't have time to even get anything going in the passing game. And this year, the offensive line has just improved a little bit, because, again, that's how you got to build up a program. And so, shout out for them for taking a step forward. And Travis has improved because the offensive line has improved.
Another interesting number out of this, by the way. Again, I like to look at hidden yardage. This game, look. Boston College scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. Florida State did not score in the fourth quarter. This should have been a bigger win for Florida State, but 13 penalties for 120 yards for the Seminoles.
I'll get you.
It'll get you every time. Also, Florida State only 2 out of 10 on third down and 0 for 2 on fourth down. So, when Boston College was 8 out of 16 on third down, that's the way that goes. That is the way that goes. Sure. Air Force on Friday night. I gotta talk about this one because holy crap. Air Force 41, Nevada 39 in triple overtime. Post-game win expectancy from college football data was Air Force 99%. Can you explain to me how in the world we get to a 99% post-game win expectancy on a game that ended up coming down to 2-point conversions?
Yeah, I don't know what goes into that formulation, but Nevada was getting their butt kicked early on and finally was able to do some of the stuff we thought they were able to do.
Carson Strong, by the way, let me interrupt you. Carson Strong did not look right early. Like, he looked, dude,
he like not like something was off, but like his body was not working. He took that big hit. They zoomed in on his bleeding and everything. But I mean, he had that. What really got me is, like, I think in the second quarter, he had maybe a 12 or 15 yard scramble, Gary, that physically hurt me to watch.
Yes.
I was just like, dude, I don't even know if he should be out there right now. And then he threw an interception that was, tipped in a bad read or whatever. And he kind of made like he was going to make the tackle, and he was hopping, staying off of that one leg. It looked like it looked like he wasn't right. So maybe they got him the good stuff at halftime, because, I mean, they went really well. I think also the halftime breather not only helped Nevada's defense adjust, because they were getting killed on the pitch. They weren't getting killed inside. They were getting killed because they were stacking inside, and Air Force was just pitching it. And the outside was just ruining those guys. But I think they got a breather and an adjustment. And so that kind of stopped Air Force's offense, only 7 points in the second half. But really, I mean, if Nevada had just not gotten shell-shocked so early, I think that they could have won this game by a couple scores. For Nevada to come back and score 21-7 in the second quarter or second half, and then lose in third overtime, I wish they had just let us have the blowout. Like, I wish Air Force had just won by 20 points.
Kyle had Nevada minus 1.5, and that's brutal to lose that on a 2-point conversion. Do you have the numbers for Air Force on this game by chance? Are they done up already?
So.
I'm curious the echo rate for Air Force in this ball game. They had a touchdown drive that was 19 plays, 75 yards. They had another touchdown drive that was 6 plays, 66 yards. They had a field goal drive that was like 7 plays, 28. There was one that was on downs. Like they turned the ball over on downs. They went 12 plays, 58 yards, and took like 7 minutes. Like, the drives were insane to watch from them because they are so efficient on offense. I was curious about the echo rate.
Yeah, so I have 11. They had 11 drives, and 6 of those were quality possessions. So 54%, I guess, which is pretty solid and above their season average. And then you look at it, I mean, they went for it at 4th and 1 at the Nevada 17, and they didn't get it. They kicked a field goal after having, 1st and 10 at the Nevada 32. And so, I mean, they were really pushing them around, especially in the first half there. And then that fumble was 1st and 10 at the Nevada 28 they had, I think. No, that's the next drive. This play-by-play is a mess. So that was 1st and 10 in Nevada territory at the 43. That one wasn't technically a quality possession, but it was close. And so, I mean, they really put the ball. They did a really, really good job, especially in that first half.
Yeah. Moving on, Louisiana, trying to get through these last two. Louisiana 42, Liberty 14, and Billy Napier, like, putting on a show against Hugh Freeze. What did you see out of this one? Because I had it on, and once it got to be 21-14, and then it was 28-14, and then it was 35-14, and I stopped. Like, this looked like exactly what I expected out of a Louisiana team, because I've told you multiple times this year, when they feel threatened, when they feel like people think that the other team is a better team, that's when they actually show up. This was an incredibly efficient showing from Napier's bunch, which also got me the over 9.5 on the season for Louisiana. Nice. So I was happy about this one. But did you see anything that stood out on this? The post-game win expectancy over at CFB data, by the way, 85% for Louisiana in a 28-point win. So Air Force 99% with a 2-point win, and Louisiana 85% with a 4-touchdown win. You got to love numbers, brother. What'd you see out of this one?
So one thing, I mean, total yards, Liberty and Louisiana were even there. And I mean, Levi Lewis only 166 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns. And then Louisiana, not a very efficient rushing attack at all. They only had 132 yards, not sack adjusted. I think the issue for me here is that
there's one stat that lost them the ball game, right? Like
Hugh Freeze. So Malik Willis threw 2 interceptions. Hugh Freeze has an offensive line problem, man. I think we saw it in the Syracuse game that they should have won. Malik Willis was sacked 7 times, and they 3 interceptions overall, but 2 of them from Willis. So I mean that really is what happened. Is the offensive line lost to Louisiana's really good defensive line, and Willis couldn't do anything.
Red zone 5 out of 7 for Louisiana, 0 for 1 for Liberty. Also 6 turnovers in the ball game for Louisiana. For Liberty. Excuse me. That is that'll get you beat, especially when the other team does not turn it over at all. Just absurd. Just absurd.
Yeah, well, and if you look at Liberty, I mean, the Louisiana Monroe game was another one where, I mean, I had them winning by 20 and they lost by 3. Yeah. They had 1st and 10 at the 32, 1st and goal at the 2, 1st and 10 at the 16, and got 0 points out of all 3 of those. They're terrible at finishing. And some of that tells me they don't have the athletes outside and they don't have the athletes up front. So they're struggling a little bit this year. It's interesting to see what Hugh will do.
Now, you've got that right. I wonder if he is interested at all in taking some of these other jobs, because I've heard his name mentioned for Miami and for Virginia Tech. I don't think he comes back to the SEC, because I think the SEC would just be, they'd watch him like a hawk like constantly. So you can't even get your job done, really, if you're being watched like that. But in the ACC, I could see him being successful at some of those places. But also, why would you leave Liberty? You're getting paid $3 million a year to be at a private school in Virginia where nobody can FOIA your phone records or anything like that. Like, you're just out in the woods doing what you want to do in Lynchburg. Like, why leave? Like,
yeah, I don't think that would be smart for him. But you never know what some of these guys' how some of their ambition manifests.
Yeah, I think he wants to be able to get back on the stage and prove people wrong over and over and over again. That's just his thing. And he's always been like that, even when he was coaching at Briarcrest High School. So, that's the way it goes. Last one.
The Saints, man.
Oh, yeah. The last one on the board here, and then I will let you go, and I'll start cutting up videos and all that good stuff. Houston 31, Memphis 13. So Memphis, I said before the season, I don't think they've got the playmakers. I don't think they got the guys in the trenches. And this was just another example of that. Houston's defense is pretty good. Held Memphis to only 4.4 yards per play. Only 106 yards rushing in this game. Both teams had 2 turnovers, but overall, I mean, this was just a beating. Seth Hennigan, 21 out of 45 passing, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I don't know what to make of Memphis. I will say this. Chris on the show has mentioned multiple times that he, and these are his words, not mine, that he would push Ryan Silverfield out of a window if he could get Justin Fuente to come back to Memphis. I don't know what to make of that, but I do know that I think Houston's really good, and I think Memphis is kind of falling off a bit without the Mike Norvell genius that is here. And I don't know that Fuente would have continued the same trajectory that he was at Memphis before he took the Virginia Tech job. So I don't know what to make of Memphis at this point in the season. Obviously, they have one more game to go against Tulane, and they need that one to get bowl eligible. But Houston looks really good, man. Like they've only beaten 2 winning teams. We did have somebody jump into the chat earlier that said they've only beaten like ECU and SMU. Brown Yeti jumped in. Yeah, but Houston has played like 2 teams over 500, ECU and SMU, and I think that's it. They lost to Texas Tech early. Can Houston give Cincinnati a game?
I think they can. They're definitely playing as well right now as anybody. And I mean, again, it's not their the thing about only beating 2 teams that are over 500 or whatever, I mean, Rice, Grambling, Navy, Tulsa, Tulane, ECU, SMU, USF, Temple, Memphis, like that's not their fault that every team on their schedule is bad. There's nothing they can do about that. I will say that Texas Tech loss, man, so super weird. The thing for Memphis is we just saw like Seth Hennigan's a freshman. That's a big deal. Yeah. And I will say to Chris on the record, thanks for telling me about it, because now if he pushes Ryan Silverfield out of a window, I'm an accessory and I have to testify against him. Drag me into this whole thing. Just trying to watch football, Chris. But yeah, so I mean, Clayton Tune is the most boring quarterback. He just makes it happen. But I mean, Houston is sneakily stacked with Dell and Singleton at receiving there. I really think that they can match up well. And I think the difference between them and SMU, because SMU's offense, for instance, is better than Houston's offense. The difference is SMU's defense is a mess, and Houston's defense is sneaky, real good. Has just been absolutely frustrating to people. And so I think that this, I mean, again, Cincinnati, I said it a couple of weeks ago, Cincinnati has a real tough stretch here with, SMU theoretically, ECU has been sneakily decent, and then Houston all back to back is going to be pretty rough. But I don't know that Houston can beat them. I just think that Houston is going to give them as much of a test as they've seen all season. They look great, and it looks like Holgorsen knows what he's doing and kind of has it running here. They're trending hot at a really, really nice time. Oh, yeah. If they go and, take care of business next week against UConn, of course, and then they put up a good fight against Cincinnati, if not pull an upset, they could sneak into this New Year's Six, but I think UTSA is ahead of them. But if they beat Cincinnati,
it changes everything.
I think they get an SEC team in a bowl game though, for sure, if they and maybe beat them. So
yeah, no, they are. I will tell you this: the matchup from the offense definitely plays into what Cincinnati has had trouble with. They can run the football. Yeah. Like Houston can actually run the football, and Clayton Tune is not a bad quarterback. In this game, he had 2 picks. He had 1 touchdown, 20 out of 34, 264 yards. Like, he wasn't great, but he can throw it well enough to offset the rushing attack. There are ways to get Cincinnati to bite on things, and I think that they can take advantage of it. The question will be, can they slow down Cincinnati's offense? I'm real curious about it. I don't think Holgorsen goes anywhere after the season. I think he will be at Houston for a long, long while. But I'm very curious about Doug Belk, the defensive coordinator, and what he's done with Houston's defense this year. He'll be getting some calls. I would almost guarantee. He's Saban tree, all that kind of stuff. Like, this will be interesting to see what happens after the season is over. Let's see. I got other ones to list. East Carolina over Navy, last-second field goal. Favored by 4. Should have covered. Colorado 20-17.
Freaking covered.
Yeah. Colorado 2017 over Washington. Hey, TCU, your boys, 31-28 over Kansas. Lance Leipold doing some things, man. Like, I love what he's doing there. Like, I think Texas would be in such a better position if they had hired him. Like, they never would.
The thing for them at Kansas is I think that he understood that he needs to they need to become not a meme. That was the first step, right? Like, So Bobby Bowden is like, crushing losses, getting crushed, crushing losses, winning big or whatever. Kansas had one more step before. There's like, if we beat you, it's not a meme. They turned the corner this year.
Yes.
And that is huge. They attracted, their highest ever recruit from Lawrence. Like they're able to kind of get into that Kansas City area. He's got a clear vision. They can run the ball. I'm optimistic, man. In the new Big 12, I think Kansas doesn't have to be a bottom feeder at all.
No, they do not. Oregon State 24, Arizona State 10. Kyle got his under 59 on that. Arizona State Corvallis is weird anyway, but Arizona State is just mind-blowingly confusing. I don't know what to make of this team at all. And I get it because they got 7 assistant coaches throughout the season that have been put on paid administrative leave, and who knows what you're going to get from this team week in and week out because these are 18 to 22-year-old kids. Who knows what the emotions are week in and week out, but man, I tell you this, Jonathan Smith going to be getting a lot of calls. I would have to imagine.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that offense, man, it's just been great. And if he can get the right DC at a place, they could do really, really well. I wrote a really, really funny really funny article now in retrospect after the Arizona State Stanford game where Arizona State went up 21-0 and then just cruised. And I was like, I think maybe the advanced stats are underrating Arizona State. And then Arizona State proceeded to just, make fun of me, target me specifically with the rest of their season. So
I could believe it. And then Pitt 48, Virginia 38. Brennan Armstrong did play, had massive numbers in the game. I don't even have them pulled up, and I am not worried about it. But this is what we expected from Kenny Pickett and Brennan Armstrong. A lot of points, not a lot of defense. It was fun. That was a fun ball game.
Yeah. That UVA defense, man, that UVA defense stinks.
It is their offense
is. It is down in a bad way that it hasn't been in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yes, it is very bad. It's rough to see this from a Bronco Mendenhall team, right? You would not expect this because they're supposed to be tough and whatnot. But either way, all right. Is there anything else that you feel like hitting on, or are we good to wrap this thing up?
No, man, I'm glad we talked about UTSA UAB. That was going to be my one where it was you have to enjoy these college football games. But no, I enjoyed chatting about the games this morning. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I appreciate you doing it. We went at almost an hour 45. So I love this is my favorite show of the week, by the way. The Sunday morning, just riff about what happened, right? Always a lot of fun. Viewers always enjoy it. Chat, of course, as we get later in the season. Drops off just a little bit. There's not as much hope as there was early in the season, but still a lot of people that loved it, and we did have a lot of viewers, so we certainly appreciate that. Of course, again, winningcureseverything.com, the BetUS College Football Show, links to all that in the description. Go to BetUS and sign up using the promo code NCAAF2021. Get you a 125% deposit bonus up to $2,500, and it is sportsbook exclusive. Thank you to Parker over at CFB-graphs.com. You can find his work on Football Outsiders. You can find him on Twitter at Stats of War. All of these great places, and his Twitter and everything else will be linked in the description as well. With that said, Parker, any parting words?
One more week of the regular season, man. Let's get it.
Just one more week. And then we got championship week, and then we got bowl season.
Yeah. See you on
Wednesday. I cannot wait. All right, everybody, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and hopefully all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for checking out Winning Cures Everything. If you want to keep up with us, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Visit the website at winningcureseverything.com, or you can like us on Facebook or follow us at Winning Cures, at Gary WCE, or at Chris B. Giannini on Twitter. Share out the show, leave a nice review, and make sure to comment